Hello, this is John Makuch with WSOU News, and I'm here with Dr. Patrick Fisher, professor of political science, who has been at Seton Hall University since 2004. Not only is he a professor, he is an author who has been published in a wide range of academic journals. And Dr. Fisher, it's a pleasure to be able to sit down with you and discuss the upcoming election and the importance of voting nowadays as well. So, how important, how crucial is it for especially college students specifically to come out and vote, especially during this upcoming gubernatorial election?
From an age perspective, you really see how younger Americans are kind of hurt politically by the fact they don't participate as much. And this is always the case. Younger Americans have never participated at the levels of older Americans, and thus there's always a pretty significant age bias in American politics. My argument today would be that the age bias is bigger than ever because older and younger Americans, younger generations of Americans, have much larger political differences than they've had in the past.
So then, with that being said, how can we encourage young people to go out and vote? Because that's been the main struggle at this point.
Well, ironically, in recent years, and really the key is recent years, is Donald Trump. Donald Trump has motivated people to go to the polls. And this is kind of a test case scenario here for the New Jersey elections next week, because it's an odd year election. Trump's no longer in office. Are we going to go back to kind of muddling turnout rates? When Trump was president, the 2018 midterm elections and then the 2020 elections, where he's trying to win re-election, vote-out turnout just skyrocketed. And in 2018, for younger Americans, college-age students usually do not vote at very high rates in midterm elections in particular. But in 2018, it shattered all records for college students and younger Americans voting. And that was unquestionably a reaction against Donald Trump. Some have argued that we've maybe gotten a little bit of political fatigue, that people are kind of ODing on it. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
What makes this upcoming gubernatorial election so important, especially in the state of New Jersey?
I would say what makes it more interesting than maybe your typical election is the influence of Donald Trump in American politics. And as a political scientist, I'm generally supposed to say the opposite. Focus on different levels of office in terms of what you're voting for. But we are living in a very nationalized era. And in terms of what's been going on, I think with so much of public policy, the pandemic in particular, you just can't ignore the fact that so much of what's going on is being dictated by the federal government and the relationship there.
Why has it been so difficult for there to be, the large voter turnout that you might want?
Yeah, so that was the topic of my last book. I called it the representational disconnect, that Congress didn't represent all citizens equally because it didn't have the motivation to. And that goes back to kind of why younger students, younger Americans and college students should go out and vote, is to have their voices heard. And like right now with the Build Back Better proposals by Biden, there are proposals that are definitely directly relevant to college-age students, where college-age students can be benefiting by some of the programs that have been proposed. On the other hand, there have been other policies proposed, such as Medicare expansion, dental provisions for Medicare, for example. And those would, when you're 65 in 40, 50 years, it might help out today's college students, but it's much more long-term in nature. So it would be hard to argue that if, Pell Grants didn't get expanded, but the dental provisions to Medicare got expanded, that there wasn't kind of a generational battle there that younger Americans kind of lost out on.
And a major tool in that generational battle that you've mentioned is social media. So, how has social media played a role in creating voter turnout, increasing voter turnout, especially among younger people?
I guess I see it as a double-edged sword because the social media has made voter discourse worse. It's made it meaner, unquestionably. And it's something as a political scientist that just drives me crazy is all the falsehoods you hear that just how do people come up with these ideas? And it's through social media. But at the same time, it is helping to motivate people to the polls. I just hope it's not motivating them for the wrong reasons, that they're going out and voting for something on the basis of falsehoods as opposed to, oh, they learned about it.
In what ways can students, people my age especially, get people that are around the same demographic to go out and vote and to increase the numbers?
Yeah, I would argue it's just really to stress the importance of it. The example that I use with Pell Grants versus Medicare expansion, there's winners and losers in public policy. And if you don't have your voices heard, then politicians, even if they kind of agree with you in principle, they're not necessarily going to create public policy if it's not in a way that is helping them win re-election. That's kind of the nature of a democracy, for better or worse. Sometimes in low turnout elections, the polls are wrong and conventional wisdom can be wrong. So just to kind of assume that Democrats always win in New Jersey, I don't need to vote whether or not would vote Democrat or Republican. It's a shoo-in. I would say absolutely do not have that attitude because that is definitely not the case. And in New Jersey in particular, I would say along with the governor's race, there's state legislature races as well. And if the governor's race is more competitive than a lot of pundits think it might be, then the state legislature could definitely be in play as well. And I think that is something to consider.